Okay.
Okay, are you ready to start the session?
Yes, we are ready to start.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us in this beautiful evening. Welcome, Diane, Patricia, Crystalline, Anga, Denny, everyone. Welcome to our online talks. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'm Shayla from the bridge at Green School Bali. So before we start this great talks with Benjamin, I would like to introduce what are the bridge is. So the bridge at the Green School, or maybe some of you don't know Green School, but yeah, so Green School is an international school in Bali where we teach our students in a natural, holistic, and student-centered education. And the Bridge is a co-learning center inside of the Green School that we want to be a center of change, inspiration, and reflection. And we provide a learning center for individuals to create a path and to approach their work and life differently through greater learning opportunities. So the Bridge, we have our tagline and call it as Green School for Grown Up. So welcome everyone to our online talks. I'm really excited to introduce you to our great speaker, Benjamin. So, but before I introduce and read his profile, I would like to share you about the rules. So first, please open up your camera so we know who you are. Open up your cameras, and then when our speakers talk, please mute your microphone. And we will have a Q&A session after the presentation. And during the Q&A, please raise your hand first or chat us in the comment section. And we will select you, and you can open your mic and open your camera to ask the questions directly to Benjamin. So if that rules can be understood, I will read his profile. So Benjamin used to be a senior manager and expert consultant for more than 10 years, but now he decided to take a leap of faith in order to find a meaningful purpose. Following a groundbreaking inner journey of reconnection, healing, and realization, he is now dedicating his life to help humanity in these challenging times by sharing the unique knowledge and understanding he acquired on this journey. So Benjamin Casteillo is the founder of New World Together, a think tank and advocacy group dedicated to supporting the global transition towards sustainability. So please welcome Ben, and the time is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you everyone who is here. So just before I start, let me just introduce the subject, and I think my personal introduction was really good. I have nothing to add. So the subject that we are going to talk about is sustainability, but from a global and holistic point of view. Why we're going to talk about this subject? First, it's a personal story. It's a subject that has haunted me for years. Since an early age, I realized that the way we behave on our planet is not sustainable, and it's bringing us on the verge of basically of a catastrophe. And this has haunted me for years, and it has haunted me during my corporate career. And after more than 10 years of career, after having succeeded in what I had in mainstream social terms, I decided to quit. Teresia, maybe you would like to just mute your mic? Oh, that's perfect. Thank you so much. So yeah, basically I decided to quit my career to work on the problem of sustainability because I felt that it was such an important subject. Today, with the COVID-19 outbreak and the consequences on our lives, the confinement measures that have been taken in order to face this epidemic, we have time to reflect individually and collectively. We have time to reflect about our priorities. We have time to reflect about the global situation. We have time to reflect about what it is to be human in the 21st century. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to change. Crises are also great opportunities for change. And the problem of global sustainability is a reminder that there is a huge need for change. So I hope for all of you who are listening, you don't only see the COVID-19 crisis as something terrible to go through, but also as an opportunity for the better. I'm now going to dive into what is global sustainability and how to demystify the complexity of this problem. I think one of the issues that we have is that every time we think globally, we get overwhelmed because we don't have the cognitive tools to have clarity and discernment on such issues. So to start, I would like first to remind, I think most of you are aware, but I think it's important to remind it because it's something we tend to forget as a species, that the natural environment which we are part of is the condition for us to be alive. And we tend to forget how interdependent and interconnected we are with our natural environment. We tend to see it only as a source of profits at the moment. So that's really a first point that I want to make is to remind ourselves how interdependent and interconnected we are with our natural environment. When we said that we need to save the planet, I think that we are not really realizing that it's ourselves and our future that we need to save. The planet doesn't need human beings on its surface, but human beings need the planet ecosystems in order to remain alive. And I think that's very important to remind because we tend to forget that and to think that we are the saviors, while actually we are doing something that is very important for our survival. That's the first aspect. No, in order to understand global sustainability and to demystify the complexity, there are two very important points to consider. It's what we call humanity's ecological footprint and Earth's biocapacity. So I'm going to describe it in the most simple way as possible. Why I'm doing this? Because we really have to get out of this complexity if we want to approach this problem. So the Earth, humanity's ecological footprint is the impact that we have on the planet ecosystems. And they are made of three different parts. It's the amount of resources that we extract from the planet ecosystems. It's the amount of pollution that we release in the process. And it's the amount of damage that we deal to the planet ecosystems. So our activities have an impact on the planet ecosystem that can be destructive. The good news on that is that our planet is resilient and it has an ability to repair the damage that we are doing. This is where we tap into the biocapacity of the planet. The biocapacity of the planet is its ability to provide the resources that we use. It's its ability to absorb the pollution that we release, and it's its ability to repair the damaged ecosystems. So I think we observe, thanks to COVID-19, by the way, how resilient is our planet. We've seen wildlife coming back in places where it usually is not because of the human presence. We've seen, for those who've seen that, I've seen pictures of Jakarta during the confinement with clean air, something that has not been seen for decades. So our planet is very resilient, and that's because it has a biocapacity. Now, what creates the problem of global sustainability, or what creates global unsustainability, is when humanity's ecological footprint, and I'm talking about the whole humanity, not about just one country separated from the other. I'm talking about the whole humanity, the whole global economy. When humanity's ecological footprint overshoots the biocapacity of the planet, which means that we are extracting more resources than the planet can sustainably provide. We are rejecting more pollution than the planet can absorb. And we are destroying the planet ecosystem at a faster rate than the planet is able to regenerate. That's basically what creates global unsustainability. That's very important because it's actually not that complicated if we look at it this way, but we are not used to look at it this way. And so we are in a complex, we are stuck in the complexity of the problem because we don't see how easy it is. So what happens when humanity's ecological footprint overshoots Earth's biocapacity? Well, it's everything that we are seeing right now. So we see like some of the major factors, and I can show you here on my screen so that you can. So we're gonna talk here about, let me do that. So bear with me, I'm also learning how this is working. So 1 minute, up. So share the screen. All right, so I don't know if you can see, and I hope you can. So some of the major consequences of overshooting the limits of our planet, its biocapacity, it's resource overconsumption. So to give you, I'm gonna give you some statistics so that you can have a grasp of the scale of the problem. Why I'm doing this? Because if we want to find a solution to a problem, we need to be able to measure its scale. We need to be able to so we really have to look at where we are today. So in terms of resources overconsumption, it's estimated that for us to be able at the current level to extract resources sustainably, the planet will need to be 1.70 times bigger than what it is today. So that means that we are taking more resources than the planet can sustainably provide. Another aspect of the overshoot of the planet biocapacity is ecosystem destructions. So scientific reports are showing that 75% of the planet ecosystem have either been severely damaged or destroyed as a result. A third aspect is pollution. So many of us are living and breathing polluted air. It's estimated to kill more than 1 million people per year. So that's to give also. So that's another consequence. The sixth mass extinction, and forgive me, my sometimes I have problem pronounce this word. It's also one of the huge consequence. It's estimated that 60% of wildlife has gone extinct in the last 50 years. And then last but not least is climate change. So what we see here are the consequences, the symptoms of us overshooting the biocapacity of the planet. And I really mention the symptoms because very often I hear we must fight climate change. I see like it was Jeff Bezos who's just like put 100 millions to fight climate change. And I think it is not the right approach because we are fighting the symptoms and not the problem. So what is the problem? This is where we are looking back at ourselves as a species. The problem is the way we choose to inhabit the planet on which we are. And basically, which is to grow and multiply and to compete with one another, to continue to grow and multiply. So why are we behaving like this? Because it is good to make this, to realize that this is the problem, but we need to understand why we are behaving like this. So in order to understand that, we have to take a big step back and look at our past origin as human beings. Okay, so we are now going to step away from environmental science, and we are going to dive a little bit in history, still looking at the big picture. So that's what is, by the way, an interdisciplinary approach. It's like we are not looking at one subject, not only looking at one aspect, but we are connecting the dots between them all. Yeah. So I repeat, so the issue is that we are growing and multiplying too much and overshooting the biocapacity of the planet. So why are we doing this? So to have a response to this question, it's very important to look at where we come from. I'm going to share my screen again so that you can see that. So I hope you can see. So basically, what you see is two bars, one gray bar and one white bar. The gray bar represents, it's a timeline since the creation of Earth. So the creation of Earth is estimated, according to science, to the best of science, to be 4.5 billion years old. And if you see on that gray bar, and if you have the ability to look in detail, you see that on the right end, it's there's a lighter gray and then a white part with a time 100. That's Homo sapiens timeline multiplied by 100, because otherwise we will not be able to see it. It means that we human beings are a very new creation on Earth. We arrived very recently. And if we look at the timeline of Homo sapiens, which is what is below, you will see that Homo sapiens is estimated to be about 150,000 years old. So our species is extremely new on this planet. It's 150,000 years old. And most of the time spent by Homo sapiens was the Stone Age. The Stone Age was a time where the conditions for survival were very tough in many parts of the world. We were, at the time, our ancestors were hunter-gatherers, which means that in order to survive, they've learned to dominate an environment that was hostile. They've learned to accumulate resources because they were often facing problem of scarcity or poverty. And they've learned to conform to norms in order to remain in one cohesive group. So this is really our survival instinct has been shaped by three primitive fears. So it's important to understand that fear is, the purpose of fear is to trigger the instinct of survival. And survival is the first priority of life. If there's no survival, there's no life, right? And so the three primitive fears that have been predominant in this time, according to our research, are the fear of vulnerability, because the environment was hostile and we had to be strong. And that means that we want to grow, we want our power to grow. We don't want to be vulnerable. There's the fear of scarcity, because there wasn't enough. We didn't know how to extract and produce so much resources back then. And so as a response, a survival response with accumulated resources. And there's the fear of being rejected by the group, because an individual that will be rejected by the group will be very vulnerable on top of being unable to reproduce. So we've learned to survive by growing our power, accumulating resources, and conforming to social norms around us. And this is deep rooted in our behaviors. So what changed and why is it now a problem? Well, I'm going to take you to the next aspect of it. Is a big change happened. It's estimated to be around 250 years ago. We entered what scientists call the Anthropocene. What is the Anthropocene? It's the era, the era, it's a new era in which human beings finally dominate the surface of the globe, which means that we dominate the natural environment. We are able to produce resources in abundance. And we have more freedom to be ourselves. But this is extremely new. It's just 250 years ago, which means that if we look at the big picture, it happened extremely recently. And it happened at an accelerating rate, because the entrance in the Anthropocene was at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution 250 years ago. But what followed is the Great Acceleration. So I'm moving there to the Great Acceleration is considered to be about to have started in the mid-50s. And it's an exponential growth of all measures of human activities and an exponential growth of progress. So you can see in what I'm sharing now, and it's just as image. Let me put it in full screen so that you can see hopefully better. If we look at human progress between 100,000 years before the year zero and 5,000 years before the year zero, it is almost insignificant. 100,000 of years of evolution at this time of progress was insignificant. If we compare after the Anthropocene, the amount of progress we did, for example, between the year 1900 and the year 2000, it is massive. Here looking at aviation, the same thing happened with mobile phone, etc. So what we've seen is an exponential acceleration of technological progress, but also of the population, of the resources that we extract, of the pollution that we release, of the damage that we do to our planet ecosystems. And this is really something, like, as we can see, that started more around 70 years ago. So it's like yesterday compared to human evolution. And to give you an idea, like, it's during these last decades that the destructive impacts to our planet have happened. The overshoot of the biocapacity of the planet is estimated to have started around the 70s. So just 20 years after the beginning of the Great Acceleration. In the 50s, if I remember well, we were about, I think I don't have the exact number about, I know the Earth's population has more than doubled in the last 50 years. So this is really new conditions for us. And our human species seems to not have integrated yet these new conditions. Why? because in many aspects, we are still behaving as if we were not in the Anthropocene. Which means that we are still competing for position of power with the fear of being vulnerable. We are still competing for accumulation of wealth with the fear of not having enough. And we are still stuck in conforming to norms that are not serving us anymore. So I'm going to try to explain that. It's as if our survival instinct didn't have time to integrate the entrance in the Anthropocene because our collective survival instinct is driven by unconscious mechanisms that have been inherited from the pre-Anthropocene era and that are deep rooted in survival. Why is it so hard? It's because we are not aware of those, and we are not aware of the vicious circle in which they keep us stuck as a species, because it creates vicious circles. So this is what I'm going to show you now. And let me share again my screen. If you look, for example, so we're gonna go back to the three primitive fears. So just to remind you, as far as we know, it's the fear of hostility and vulnerability. It's the same thing. It's the fear of scarcity, and it's the fear of separation, the fear of rejection. If we look at the fear of vulnerability or the fear of hostility, what it tends to promote is a mindset of predation. It's a mindset where we believe that the world is dangerous and that we need to dominate and to control it. What this mindset will trigger is power struggle between human beings today, because we have undisputed domination over the animal world. So this is really now between us, humans to human. It creates power struggle. And this power struggle perpetuates a reality which is where there is a lot of hostility and aggression, whether we're conscious of it or not. It's there. And we can observe it when this conflict turns into war, for example. But it's there in the professional environment. It's there in our families. And these perpetuate the fear, the primitive fear of being vulnerable. We're like, well, you know, this world is tough. I gotta be strong. And so it perpetuates with it the mindset of predation. And so that creates a vicious circle. The same thing happened with the fear of vulnerability. The fear of scarcity. So we have the belief, we've inherited the belief that there's not enough for everyone, because we've never seen all humanity having sufficient resource to live. There's always been poverty. There's always been people who didn't have enough, starved. That creates a mindset of scarcity, of the belief that there's not enough for everyone. As a result to this belief, what's going to happen is we humans are going to compete for wealth and for resources. And we are going to tend to accumulate because there's not enough for everyone, so we need to accumulate. And so those in position, those who have a lot of power will have the tendency to as well accumulate a lot of these resources. And that creates inequalities, that perpetuates poverty. And so that perpetuates as well the mindset of scarcity. So, and I'm really talking at, don't take anything personally, like, because I'm really looking at the collective level here. So the collective patterns in which we are stuck without knowing it. And the same thing happened with the fear of separation, the fear of rejection. It brings us to conform to social norms, to collective beliefs, to cultures that might not always be the best for us, because we are fearing to be rejected if we don't conform. And as we do that, we will naturally tend to marginalize those who are not doing the same thing. And when this happens, we are nurturing the fear that if we start to question some dominant beliefs, we start to question our cultures, we are going to be rejected. And so that can lead to conformism, to cultures, to social norms that are not anymore serving us. One example today is the culture of materialism, the culture of competition, the culture, the dominant culture that we have today. So all of these behavior, which are, from what we see, from what our research shows, deep-rooted in survival, are self-perpetuating, and they are the ones that are not sustainable in the Anthropocene. To give you another image, it's a little bit like, you know, soldiers who've been at war all their lives, or spend time at war. And they've developed these patterns of survival that were so necessary on the battlefield. And when the war is over and they go back home, they go back to the family, they realize that they are traumatized. They realize that they've carried war with them. And they are not about, they've carried symptoms, they've carried the warrior instinct with them, and it's becoming self-destructive for them, for the family, for their community. And that happens a lot. And if we look at the human species, it seems to be what has happened on the collective basis. I mean, we've been at war for survival in an hostile environment. Our ancestors have been, particularly our ancestors. And we've inherited of the survival patterns that are not anymore working for us and for our species in the 21st century, in the Anthropocene. So why is that? It's very important to understand why we inherit these patterns and why they are so deep-rooted. So for that, it's important to understand psychology. And the aspect on which I want to point toward is collective psychology, and particularly collective traumas. So what are collective traumas? It's the result of cataclysmic events, tough events that happen to a group, a society. And they tend to result in traumatic memories that shape our cultures and our societies. And if we look at human history, it is filled of these traumatic events. We talk about war, conflicts, genocide, famines, thousands of years of poverty, sexism, slavery, persecutions, etc., oppression, etc. So our heritage is an heritage which is deep rooted in trauma. And these traumas have shaped our culture, our societies, our belief systems, our fear, and therefore our behaviors. And so science is very clear on what trauma does. It creates a disconnection from who we're supposed to be. It keeps us in survival mode. Traumas are not against us. They are memories that says, hey, you know, the world is dangerous. There's not enough. You got to be careful about what you say. And it's passed along generation it's passed in families, it's passed in society without us being aware of it. So it's really important for us to look at this aspect, because it changed the way we look at global sustainability. Suddenly, it is not only a problem that we need to fix on the outside, it's a problem that we need to address on the inside, at the individual and at the collective level. And that's a big shift. If we can have that realization, it generates a big shift, because it changed the whole story. Of course, what is to be understood as well about our destructive and unsustainable behaviors that are a direct result of our traumas is that they came out of a necessity, which means to grow and to multiply was a necessity for hundreds of thousands of years. And we are probably the only species on Earth that achieve a level of evolution, a level of development, where not only we can step out of this primitive purpose of life, but we have to do it because it is becoming profoundly unsustainable. And so, from our point of view, and based on our research, what we are seeing here is a call for conscious evolution, which we have to make as a species in order to integrate the limits of our planet, yeah, basically. And so in order to be able to have a future. So let me just check the timing, because I think we are pretty much on time. So, and I'm sorry if it's a little bit heavy, and if I really hope I've been able to connect the dots. So basically, where we are now is that we need change to move toward a regenerative culture that will allow us to heal from our traumatic memories as a species, so that we can collectively step out the survival mode that is not serving us anymore. How do we do this? And I'm going to end up with that and share my screen. So where is change starting in order to be able to achieve that? So if you're able to see the screen, there's 3 different levels that we can look at in the foundation of humanity. There's the individual level, that's you, me, separated from the rest in a way at the individual level. There's the collective level. This is group, this is communities, this is families, this is businesses, this is NGOs. And there is the systemic level. That's the global society, which, by the way, in case you don't notice, is now, I think it's one of the big demonstration of COVID-19 is how we are all interdependent and interconnected today, this globalized economy. So the change starts with us, because these 3 aspects are interdependent and interconnected. Individual change trigger collective change that trigger systemic change, that trigger collective change, that trigger individual change. It's all interdependent and interconnected. In order to be able to do so, as far as we see, there's 3 conditions. And before I start with these 3 conditions, there's one, is that we need to believe in ourselves enough to be able to make a difference. If we don't believe in ourselves, we are very unlikely to be able to make a difference, because we will not engage in change. And so it's very important. The first condition is to believe in ourselves. But beside that, the ability to make positive change that really make a difference come of three characteristics. First, it's very important to have clarity. That means the ability to understand what is happening, the ability to identify the root cause. It's very important to be empowered as an individual. That means to be first in a financial situation that allow us to be an actor of change, but to heal ourselves, to self-actualize, to develop leadership, and to have a vision for the future, because without vision, it's impossible. And then finally, we need to do actions. And there's a lot of actions that can be done. And I think a lot are already doing actions, although not always with the level of clarity and empowerment that it takes to really make a difference. But basically, these are the three stuff. And it's really where I want to end, is that today, the power to achieve global sustainability is falling into our hands as individuals. Unfortunately, I doubt our leaders will do the right steps, because their power is established on the very survival patterns that are at the root cause of the problem. So it is the responsibility, or basically the power fall back in our hands to make a difference. And that's really where I want to end up, is that to face these problems, we will need to be actors of change ourselves. Spend my last years investing as much time in my personal development to be able to make a difference than I did on external solutions. And I'm still doing this, because I realized that, especially for those who are pioneer and those who are carrying this vision, there's a lot of skills that are needed. So yeah, I just want to end up this presentation by giving you back the power and reminding you that the change starts within us, each of us. I guess now is the time to go for questions. I apologize in advance because this is a limited amount of time. Also, please know that we are preparing. So right now we are preparing online programs, classes to be able to share this knowledge with our organization. We are preparing tools because there's so much more than what I've been able to present. I've had to take a lot of shortcuts to fit within the time, and I really encourage you to come forward and get in touch with us, because we are going to bring this out, and I think it is really, that knowledge really changed our perspective, and it changed mine, and I believe it can change yours, and it can really empower you to make a difference in ways that are effective, because not only you will be able to tackle the symptom of the problem, but you will be able to tackle the root cause, which I think for me is the only way to really overcome the problem of global sustainability. I guess we can open the mic.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben, for your great presentation. So for everyone who wants to ask the questions, you can raise your hand so you can comment, and please turn on your microphone and also video. So is there anyone who wants to ask? I think some people still need to absorb all of this eye-opening presentation. But for those who wants to ask questions, please do.
Yeah, and I just want to add that I completely understand that it takes time because this is such a different way, a different perspective from the one that we are usually served. So I really understand if there's a bit of time that's needed to integrate, and that is absolutely normal.
Hi.
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Hello.
So thank you, Benjamin, for your presentation. I have a question for you.
Yes?
So in terms of this mindset and this reasoning that you shared with us, and all these triggers and fears that are ingrained in the human being, how do you see this applied to trying to make sustainable business? I don't know if this is very clear as a question, but you know, social entrepreneurship, so many people who are trying to make business different. Do you think from all the research that you've done that we can really overcome these fears of scarcity, competition, and still make business in a collaborative but financially sustainable way? Thank you.
Yes. So thank you for asking this question. First of all, I want to be clear that having the intention to have a sustainable business is part of the solution. Now, I think what's important is to keep in mind the scale of the problem and the root cause. Because I think if we go on with the belief that just doing some adjustments and a little bit more of sustainable business is going to solve the problem, I think we haven't yet grasped the scale of it. And we also haven't grasped the interconnection with other issues, such as social gaps, such as financial debt. So it is a great thing to do, and I can only encourage people who want to go more sustainable. But I also want to remind that it is very important to look at the big picture and not forget that it's a step in the right direction, but it must be followed by other steps.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. Is there any other people who wants to ask questions? We still have around 12 minutes. Maybe Ben, can you share a bit about New World Together and how can people reach out to you?
Sure. So New World Together is the foundation of founded, I've opened. So we are a little baby. We are a bit more than a year old. I will describe it as a think tank and an advocacy group, which is focusing on the problem of global sustainability with an holistic point of view and through an interdisciplinary approach. And our aim is really to focus on the root cause of the problem. It's an heritage from my corporate career as a senior manager, as an expert consultant. If we want to fix a problem, we gotta identify the root cause and focus there. Otherwise, we are addressing symptoms, but when we address symptoms, the new problems will come back. So yeah, that's what we are doing. So today we have an office in Bali. Although, of course, as we are dealing with global issues, we have the intention to expand in the coming years. What we are working on right now is online classes so that we can provide you with all the structure and knowledge, because there's so much more, really. Like, you'll be surprised that actually we just scratched the surface. So that you are able to integrate and share that knowledge later on, so that you're able to be empowered with it. So we are working on online tools. I'm also, I have projects also to create games. And we also have regular events such as talks, etc., etc. So if you want to get in touch with us, I invite you to find us on Facebook, on Instagram. You can also find me personally. So you have my full name is Benjamin Casteillo. I think it's, if you've seen the flyer, you've got it. We are very new, so we are very flexible and very open. So this is really a new project. But I'm very confident. I have to say that creating it was a leap of faith, but I'm very confident because I see that it really permits to bring new and refreshing, groundbreaking knowledge that can make a difference and that are so needed in our times. One of the greatest problems we face as a species is we don't have a consensus on reality. We don't agree on what is reality. And that is very problematic. Because when we don't agree on reality, we cannot share mutual understanding, we cannot share common priorities, we cannot share a common vision. So one of our aims as well is to help us as a species to find a consensus on reality. By understanding that our perspective, our worldviews are very subjective and that they are deeply rooted in the belief and the cultures in which we've grown. And so they are not to be confronted with one another in a power struggle to know which one has the best culture. They are to be complementary with one another, to learn and grow as a species. That's also one of the major message that we carry.
Right.
Okay, there's someone who's raised a hand.
Hey, Benjamin, it's Katie.
Hey.
Hey, you mentioned that the inner work was as just important as the external work.
Yes.
And that you spent many months just working on your inner self. I was wondering if you could expand on that and in a specific way where I can share with friends or people who are asking me questions like, what can I do to wake up? What can I do to expand my consciousness? Stuff like that, to really start to understand and see the world for what's really going on.
Yes. Thanks for asking this question. So I think it starts with a realization that the problem we see outside of us are a projection of the problem we have inside of us. And that realization is very important because if we don't have that realization, we tend to believe that there's nothing to change inside of us, that the enemy we have to fight is outside of us. And so this is the highway to chaos, because everybody will point at a different enemy outside of himself. And so for the right, it will be the left, and for the left, it will be the right, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so to step out of this self-perpetuating perspective based on separation and confrontation, we really have to go back within and realize that, okay, like what I see outside of me is as well inside of me. That's the first realization. Then, I mean, when we are talking about self-development, we are talking about three major aspects. It's about dissolving or limiting our destructive beliefs. It's about overcoming our irrational fears. It's about healing our unresolved traumas. It's about basically making our unconscious conscious. To do that, there are so many ways, and there are more that are being developed today. I mean, we live in times where there are so much type of therapies and techniques for personal development. So it would be hard for me to point at a particular one, because I mean, what will work for someone will not work for someone else. And so I think right now, because we have to find our own way a lot of it. So, so meditation is one technique. Introspection is one technique. Group therapies are one technique. Participating to events like this is part of the process. So there's not one universal response. It's really up to us to find our ways and find what works with us to bring this unconscious to consciousness and being able to make conscious choice, being able to free ourselves from these patterns that are destructive, and being able to help others to do the same. Because I think, of course, what we want is to have a ripple effect. We can only share what we have. So it's really start within us. It's really start with us. That's really what's most important. It's to start with us. Just as the plane, when it's, you know, when the masks are falling off, the rule is you put your mask on yourself first. So there's not one response, there's plenty of them, and it's really an invitation to look for what works for you.
Great, thank you so much.
Right, if anyone wants to ask questions, we still have 4 minutes.
So if I can just add up on that, I think the complexity right now is that we do not have yet a dominant regenerative culture and a regenerative society that makes our inner health a priority. So we have to deal with that complexity. Is that, yeah, we are still in a society where, you know, we have to be competitive and where we need to have, you know, so we have to forgive ourselves for that, because it's not necessarily easy. We are not in the best condition to be able to do it, but we got to start somewhere. Yes, I see. Is there, Katie, is there another question coming up?
So only one people raise their hand. Yeah. If there is no more questions, no more questions. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Final message. Yeah.
So to wrap, to conclude, first of all, I really would like to express my gratitude, because you went on the call, and that's quite a move. A lot of people still do not like this type of subject because of how overwhelmed it feels. And one of the major problems we face is denial as a result. We don't want to face this reality and the negative emotions that it triggers. So to all of you who came to this call, I really want to, I'm really grateful for your courage and for your dedication. We will come up with more, because this journey is far to be over. And I think one of the great teaching of COVID-19 is to embrace uncertainty. So on that journey, it is really also about embracing uncertainty. We won't have all the response before we go on the way. We'll have them while we are on the way. So my last advice is trust yourself, trust the process, embrace change. And if we do that well, beautiful results at the individual, collective, and systemic level can happen in the future.
That's a beautiful message, Ben. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Kelly, raising your hand. Do you want to ask questions, or you want to say something maybe?
Hi, Benjamin. I just wanted to say thank you, really. Such an informative and well put together talk. I think you've probably blown everyone away, and that's maybe why there's not many questions. The way that you've collated such complex information and concepts is pretty cool, and the pictures and the diagrams, yeah, I really enjoyed how you put that together and completely relate to the whole awakening of bringing the unconscious conscious. It's kind of what I do in my work, so it's really great to hear you talk and to see what you're doing, and I'm sure that, you know, everybody on this call is really appreciative and probably just really gets what you're talking about, which is the silence maybe. So thank you so much. I'll definitely connect with you via email. It's really cool to hear you speak and you know, see viewpoints like this and to see what's coming out of the whole crazy coronavirus stuff that we're in now, of how necessary it is to learn and to take, you know, humanity and consciousness to the next level. So yeah, loved it. Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah, Benjamin, you want to say something before I close the session?
I would say it's all about meaning. You know, if we can make sense of what is happening to us, then, you know, things are going to go much better. We struggle on that, but it does make sense. And it's what we need to remember, is that things make sense. It's not happening. It's not, we are not victims of reality. It's showing us. It's showing us direction. It's showing us, it's giving us information. It's giving us a purpose. So yeah, thank you very much. And really, I really appreciate being there with you. And I wish you, I don't know what time it is, but a beautiful rest of the day or night.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.